Oh, I'm an American, and our political system has floundered of late. I still believe fundamentally that if you make bad political decisions, then you pay bad political prices. And I'll just throw one name out there, Emmanuel Macron. All right, this is a man who has just made bad decision after bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, and he got destroyed in the European elections. So bad that he had to call snap elections back at home because he has no credibility anymore. And this, Olaf Scholz in Germany, same thing. His party got trounced. And I think you're going to see over time that these bad decisions that are being made in Europe will have a political cost. And that is problematic for NATO. Right now, I think there's increasing recognition amongst Europe that the decision to sanction Russia was a bad decision because your good friend America did not come to your assistance. Oh, yeah, we provided you gas, but you have to pay a lot more, and that's bankrupted you. You can't afford to do what you used to do. Now your standard of living is dropping. Your economies aren't growing as fast, or they're shrinking. Your industry is fleeing. And that now they say they want to spend hundreds of billions of dollars or euros building a new military capability. To do what? To confront the Russians. Is this necessary? And I think you're going to see more and more debate about this. NATO likes to talk about the unity of NATO. It's not a unified organization. It's beginning to collapse. What's going to cause that collapse? There's any number of, I'll give you one, Turkey. Turkey is a nation that historically, when they joined in the 1950s, they were the southern flank, securing the southern flank of NATO. Yay, Turkey, good job. But were they really? Because what happened in 1974-75? Turkey invaded Cyprus, and then the United States sanctioned them. The Turks are saying, I thought we were your allies. But according to the United States, the Greeks were better allies. And that's the fact. Turkey is the ally that isn't an ally. They're not part of Europe. Never will be, according to the Europeans. Turkey wants to join the European Union. European Union simply won't have them. So Turkey is seeking, a new independent direction. But Turkey can't jump ship yet because they have spent their entire life as the Turkish Republic, a secular society, trying to build relationships with Europe. And you can't unravel that overnight. But Turkey has been gravitating under Erdogan, towards the east, towards Central Asia, towards the old Ottoman Empire. This is why you have the Turks in Libya. Everybody goes, why are Turks in Libya? Study Turkish history. Used to be part of the Ottoman Empire. There's a guy named Enver Pasha that went to Libya in 1911, 1912. So did a guy named Mustafa Kemal Ataturk before he became Ataturk, father of the Turks. He went there. The Turks have very close relations with the Libyans. And Turkey today has very close relations with the Libyans. Now you know why. And so Turkey now has been rejected by the EU one too many times. So Erdogan made the announcement. He wants to go to BRICS. Now, is he going to join BRICS this year? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But that's the direction he's going. And once he makes that decision to dump the Europeans economically and join with BRICS, it's over. Vladimir Putin today at the the meeting with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs talked about the need to build a European or Eurasian security frameworks in place that create security guarantees against outside powers coming in, so that nations can't be singled out by the United States and Europe bullied on. And then look at Armenia. I mean, right now they are being bullied by the United States and Europe, who are literally threatening them, through bribery. But it's like, come over, we'll help you. And if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. That's what we're doing to Georgia right now. We believe in Georgian democracy, except when a democratically elected Georgian prime minister decides that he doesn't want to have foreign money coming in to try and buy the election away from him through a color revolution. Suddenly you're bad. And now we're threatening to we are sanctioning them. America sucks as a friend. And Turkey's tired of being sanctioned by America. And so Turkey's going to jump to BRICS. And when they make that jump, then it's just a question of time when they leave NATO. And if Turkey flees NATO, it's over for NATO. But there's other nations as well. I mean, they're starting to pick on Hungary. The EU's trying to nullify Hungary. At some point in time, Hungary's going to say, there's no interest in this. Serbia is going to join BRICS. If Serbia joins BRICS, that's the end of the EU aspirations for Serbia. And I'll tell you what, once BRICS becomes a viable, economic and political entity, that's the end of the G7, which is sort of one of the cornerstone institutions of the EU NATO conglomerate. And how many people know that the petrodollar's dead? Today's like the death of petrodollar. Saudi Arabia just said we're not renewing the agreement that's been in place for 50 years. Petrodollar, gone. Not totally gone. It's still around. But the key aspect to it was the Saudis. They're not part of it. They're buying oil using other currencies. Russia has dumped the dollar in the EU. They're not trading them right now. The world is starting to de-dollarize. It's one of the top agenda items at BRICS in October is how to de-dollarize. So these institutions, this part of this rules-based international order that NATO is, one of them, they're all unraveling. And Putin again pointed it out. It's over. They're not going to recover. The world is moving on, and these institutions will fall. So NATO will fall. The exact timeline for that, tough to say, but sooner rather than later. I don't think NATO sees another 25 years. I'd be surprised if NATO sees another 10.
All right, let's take a phone call from a fan whose name I recognize. Hello, Ann. How are you this evening?
Again, I just want to point out that in my resume, which is extensive, by the way, it's a pretty good resume. I'm pretty proud of it. I've done a lot of neat stuff. I'm not a banker. I'm not an economist. I'm not a financier. And the only thing I know about dollars is as soon as it enters my damn wallet, it leaves my wallet. Usually with Mrs. Ritter's fingers on it as she takes it to pay bills and buy necessary items. So I'm not the world's foremost authority on these things. I will say this, that even though the world is moving towards de-dollarization, the dollar continues to be the number one traded currency in the world. It's still the dominant currency in the world today. Rome took a long time to fall. I just want to also point that out, that, everybody says, well, Rome fell. It took hundreds of years for Rome to fall, and it fluctuated. The Roman Empire expanded, contracted, before it finally contracted to the point that it was gone. And I would imagine that the dollar is going to go through a similar cycle, even though BRICS wants to de-dollarize, getting everybody to agree. I mean, India is the big wild card. I'm going to be writing about India this coming week. Modi just got reelected, and, everybody's running away from the Ukrainian peace conference, and India's like, we're stepping in with 2 feet. Why? Why would you do that, India? Because China's not coming. So India is all about doing that which China doesn't do. India is the yin to Chinese yang, and that's not healthy. It actually in the long run, it's going to do India a great disservice, because India can't compete with China globally. Simply can't. Not right now. And if they think they can, they're not. India can't straddle the fence, but it wants to straddle the fence. The West doesn't want India to be part of the West. They really don't. They want to use India. They want India to become what they wanted China to become, subservient to the rules-based international order, a big marketplace for us to dump our goods on, to exploit their resources. But we don't want to treat them as equals, because, to be honest, in our minds, they're not. And the Indians, though, they want to be, they're saying, hey, what China is, we want to be. But you can't do that by, again, straddling the fence, trying to please everybody. And I mean, India going to this peace conference is a huge mistake for India, a huge mistake, because it's going to backfire. It's going to make them look bad, very bad, and make them look very weak, and then make them overreact to other things. I think India in the long term would benefit from a BRICS currency basket, but the Indians aren't going to play because they're concerned about the dominance of the Chinese yuan or renminbi. And so they're going to try and play the spoiler role. But what they're going to find out is, even though, the I connects the BR with the X in BRICS, nobody cares about the I at the end of the day. If the I doesn't want to play the game's bigger than the I. And India's going to find out the hard way. So, we'll see. But that creates more chaos. It makes it more difficult for BRICS to come up with a replacement currency for the dollar. And I think you're going to see that de-dollarization isn't going to be a steady decline to nothing. I think you're going to see fluctuations, going on until ultimately the dollar will be downsized to where the dollar needs to be in a truly multilateral world that has rejected dollar dominance. And that could take many decades. And so everybody's talking about the collapse of the American economic system. I don't see us collapsing. I do see belt tightening. I do see trouble. The devaluation of the dollar. We've got a lot of dollars out there that are linked to petroleum, and if they're not trading the dollars with petroleum, we got to find something to do with those dollars. Then we're also slitting our own throat on world's reserve currency. What happens when they decide that they can't trust the dollar anymore? Because what happens? We seize them, like we did with the Russians. It's going to be very problematic for the dollar, but I don't see the dollar diving off a cliff right off the bat. I see a gradual diminishment of the influence of the dollar until it reaches the equilibrium that matches the reality of America's role in the world. We'll find out, what that will be.
Michael Trabig in the Houston area asks, I have been interested in election integrity since November of 2020. I understand that you stated you believe there was election interference in the 2005 Iraq election. If you are agreeable, I would like to understand the basis for your claim. Are you agreeable?
I have never stated that I believe there was election interference in the 2005 Iraq election. I mean, of course, well, I guess I can't say it never. I mean, he's throwing something at me out of the blue. 2005, I have to go back in time. This was, God, now we're going way back. I did write an article. The United States was pushing a candidate. And I'm dragging through the minds here. We had Ahmed Chalabi. We had the guy, Chalabi was INC. Then we had the guy that the British supported out of Jordan.
Ross Perot.
No.
Completely different election. Okay.
But no, we were pushing a candidate in 2005, the American candidate, because we didn't want the Iraqi government to go full Shia on us, which of course in a democratic society is when you have a Shia majority, that's what would happen. We were also doing our best to undermine the viability of Muqtada al-Sadr at that time, big Shia popular leader. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy who it's literally I wasn't expecting a question like this, so I wasn't. Alawi, could be Alawi. It could be Alawi. Yeah. So yeah, no, the United States was involved. Remember, we had Paul Bremer's Coalition Provisional Authority that was running and trying to make this transition. And so, yeah, we definitely, so that's the basis of it. The basis of it is I claim there was 2005 election interference in Iraq because there was 2005 election interference in Iraq. We can talk about it more, but you got to let me, you can't come at me. I'm sitting here thinking Russia. I focused solely on Putin's presentation today. I got all the answers. I did my research, and you're hitting me with Iraq 2005. Good question, though. It's a fair. I'm not criticizing your question. I'm sort of embarrassed that I wasn't able to answer it better than I was on the spur of the moment. But this is a tough one because you're asking the wrong guy. I think the reason why I'm on a on the PG-13 bandwagon is because I'm actually a cantankerous SOB, and revenge is my middle name, and I hold a grudge big time. Just ask my wife. I hold grudges like you've never seen anybody hold a grudge, and so if I were a Palestinian American, Joe Biden would never get my vote, ever, just not even close. Now, that doesn't mean that Donald Trump deserves your vote. He doesn't. He's as bad. But Trump isn't the president right now. Biden is. Trump didn't betray you recently. Biden has. Now, if you vote for Trump, I promise you this, he will betray you. Maybe worse than Joe Biden has. Trump is not the answer. But if you were going to say who to vote for, I'd either write in Mickey Mouse, who's the best candidate of the three on issues pertaining to Palestine, or I just go pure revenge motivated Joe Biden. You are never going to set foot in the White. Of course, he isn't if he loses his election because it's over. But pardon? But Jill Stein's not going to win the election. I mean, you could vote for Jill Stein as a protest vote. That's up there. RFK Jr.'s the worst of the worst. Maybe that's it. Maybe vote for Jill Stein and just throw it up there. Because here's the fun part. Now we come back to my cantankerous, revenge-oriented thing. Vote for Jill Stein. Let me tell you why to vote for Jill Stein. Because Jill, I apologize. Jeff, we need to get Jill on the show because screw Trump. Keep Trump the hell out of this. Trump's the worst person in the world when it comes to Palestine. He is. I'll tell you why. As much as I despise Joe Biden, and as much as Joe Biden has senility right now, he knows so much more about the Middle East than Donald Trump does. Donald Trump is the dumbest man that walked the planet. Doesn't know anything about anything. Zero. He's a buffoon who goes out there and blusters, but when you ask him the hard questions, he doesn't have the answer. He has no answers. He knows nothing. So Trump is not the answer. Jill Stein, however, is, and I'll tell you why. Because whoever loses is going to blame Jill Stein if she gets enough votes. And that's wonderful. I think Jill should walk around and say, I was the spoiler. And then the way Jill should respond is, if you were better, they wouldn't have voted for me. So we just answered the question. Jill Stein should get all the Palestinian Americans' votes.
All right, I have exactly the right audio clip that will persuade you that Trump is the guy. Listen to this genius.
The attacks on old Russia began in earnest in the spring of this year by Ukrainian intelligence affiliated units. Some were Ukrainian, some were Russian defectors, Russian prisoners of war who swapped over, Russian malcontents that are anti-Putin. They're all controlled by Ukrainian intelligence. But let me make it clear that the United States controls Ukrainian intelligence. So it's all controlled by the United States. The CIA, to be exact, if you want to go into it, the special missions staff of the CIA, ground branch. They are running a paramilitary war, ostensibly deniable, but everybody knows what's going on. And the attacks were designed to disrupt the Russian presidential elections. The purpose of the attacks were to make Putin look weak, to make Putin look ineffective, in a goal not to beat Putin at the polls, because you can't beat Putin at the polls. He was going to win this election no matter what, but to drive down the numbers, to get the Russians to become so dissatisfied with Vladimir Putin's leadership that they just didn't vote. And that would have been devastating for Putin, because that shows no confidence in effect. And it would be very difficult for him to have a decisive mandate over the course of the next 6 years with what amounted to a vote of no confidence with low electoral turnout. So the CIA was keeping this in mind, and they were using these forces, CIA forces. This was the CIA attacking Russia. I just want everybody to know that the United States of America was attacking Russia. Think about that one for a minute. And the goal was to upset the apple cart when it came to Russian elections. It didn't work. These troops were beaten back. They were killed. And Vladimir Putin held the election in March. 78% of the eligible voters turned out. 88% of them voted for Vladimir Putin in one of the most sweeping mandates one could get. And it backfired on them. Today, we have a situation where the West is desperate. The next thing is this peace conference, which convenes tomorrow. The whole purpose of this peace conference is to get a sufficient number of like-minded nations to come together in agreement about a peace plan that they then will use to pressure Russia into bringing it into this conflict. The feeling is that enough people come together and speak about sanctions, speak about holding Russia accountable, that Russia will have no choice but to accede to the will of the world and seek an exit strategy from the Ukraine conflict that aligns with what Zelensky's been talking about. Now, there's been some modifications to that because even though people still want the West to be able to get this quorum together, nobody will ever agree to the Zelensky plan. It's unrealistic. But in order to get this quorum up, they need Russia to overreact. They need Russia to look desperate. They need Russia to feel desperate. And so they've been carrying out attacks, and they've been talking about, using Western weapons to strike inside Russia to give a sense of hopelessness, etc. So now Russia's hopeless. There's no chance of victory. And now the West comes in and says, but we have a peace plan and we'll work with you to get that. And Russia says, oh, thank you for saving us. We were in such a bad spot. Except that doesn't work either. Russia's not in a bad spot. This peace plan is going to collapse. Russia's dominating the battlefield. It hasn't worked. And that's the bottom line. All they guaranteed is that at the end of the day, Russia will demilitarize accordingly. If you want to attack Russia from Ukrainian territory, that Ukrainian territory will never be allowed to A, be in Ukraine again, or B, if it is, will have no military power. Demilitarized zones, and that's what's happening here. There's, this is it's again Macron. It wasn't so much about that. I mean, he did talk about using French weapons, etc., but he was more about trying to come up with a solution. What happens when the Ukrainian army in Kherson collapses and the Russians move on Odessa? What will the West do? And he says, well, basically, we'll deploy troops there. And I think the French people have spoken. No, you won't.
Let's take one more look at Nemo's artwork. Do we want more of Nemo, people? I say yes.
Yeah, I'm a big Nemo fan right now.
Same here.
Adequate art, using the appropriate use of the terminology, Jolly. Good job.
Yeah, you told me adequate was somehow a compliment the other day. Hey, you're on with our favorite weapons inspector. What is your very good question?
Hello. Before I ask my question, I just wanted to say I'm glad to see, Scott, that you are safe, and your speech at the nuclear warning conference was spectacular.
I agree.
My question is, do you have any advice for active duty military personnel that do not want to die in any of the various theaters that our government is foisting upon us? Thank you.
You're not going to like my answer. Do I have any advice? You shouldn't have joined. I'm sorry, but I mean, it's. I'm not going to say it's hypocritical of me. I enlisted during the time of Jimmy Carter, and when Jimmy Carter was not my favorite. I've grown to love Jimmy Carter. He's awesome. I think he was a great ex-president. And the more you learn about his presidency, you realize that he wasn't as bad as everybody makes him out to be. That Ronald Reagan got a lot of credit for things that Jimmy Carter started, especially in defense procurement. The MX missile, the B-1 bomber, things like this were all programs that Jimmy Carter started. Which will cause some people who were fans of Jimmy Carter not to like him anymore. But the point is, one of the great debacles, military debacles, great embarrassments was Desert One. And Desert One happened after I enlisted. I was in the Army, and watching that unfold on the screen was a moment of great shame, of bitterness. You felt powerless, and you just wanted to, get in there and serve your country well, with honor. I was commissioned as a Marine Corps officer under Ronald Reagan, and I'm not here to defend his policies in any way, shape, or form. I'm just going to say that, he sent us to a lot of stupid wars. Grenada, Lebanon, the bombing of Libya, dumb stuff. But because I liked Ronald Reagan, I would have gone to any one of those gladly. In fact, I'm bitter that I didn't go to Grenada and in Lebanon, not because I wanted to die, but the guys that went there, this was the peacetime Marine Corps. They walked around with combat action ribbons on their chest, and that's that was a big deal. Today, after the global war on terror, everybody has a combat action ribbon. Back then, it was a rare thing. You either were a Vietnam vet aging out, or you were guys who went on the golden pumps. You went to Grenada and Lebanon. And so, yeah, we wanted to do that. The Gulf War, I knew it was a dumb war. I mean, I remember when I was brought into Major General Caulfield's office, he was finding out if I had what it took to be recruited for the Commandant of the Marine Corps Special Ad Hoc Planning Committee. I would be the only captain on a committee full of generals and colonels. And I said, we're fighting the wrong Arabs. We should be on the side of Iraq fighting the Saudis. The Saudis are the bad Arabs. The Iraqis are the good Arabs. But it didn't matter. I was going to go to war because George Herbert Walker Bush was my commander in chief. And that's the way it was. If you're on active duty, why did you join? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Did you join to serve a president? Big mistake. Big mistake. You don't serve the president. You serve the Constitution. You serve the United States of America. Presidents come and go. The military stays the same. You have one mission: to obey the lawful orders of your national command authority. So if you're on active duty, my advice is to serve honorably until your period of enlistment or your period of service is over, and then leave with an honorable discharge. And that's that, because you don't want a dishonorable discharge, and you don't want an OTH other than honorable. It will haunt you for the rest of your life. You're in, you took an oath, obey that oath, serve honorably. And the way I would justify it is to say this: if we're going to go to war, in a war I'll give you an example. My wife she was so mad at me, but because everybody knows that I was anti-war. Jeff knows this. I was anti-war, anti-Iraq war and everything. But after 9/11, I actually went back to the Marine Corps and volunteered to go back on active duty. And everybody's like, why the hell would you do that? Aren't you against the war? I said, of course I'm against the war, but I can save Marine lives. I know enough about Iraq that I can help make the right decisions about things so that Marines don't die. And that's all I was about, was saving Marine lives. Thank goodness the Marine Corps said, thanks, but no thanks. And I didn't get to go. But I was ready to go, not because I was pro-war. I was anti-war. I was totally against that war. But I firmly believed in the heart of my heart that because of the fact that I spent 8 years in Iraq, because I had fought Iraq already in the Gulf War, that I had a unique insight into the complexities of Iraq, the tribal structure, everything about Iraqi society, the terrain, the towns, the cities, the whole thing, logistics networks, that I could have been of use in saving Marine lives. And that is done by increasing the lethality of the Marines and the survivability of the Marines. And I'm sure had I done that, I would have had nightmares and I would have had problems and all that kind of stuff. But I was willing to do that to save Marine lives. If you're on active duty right now, make your focus saving the lives of your fellow service members. If you're in the Air Force, do whatever you can to save the life of the person to your left and your right. If you're in a leadership position, be the best damn leader you can be to make sure that those people aren't put into harm's way improperly trained. They're going to be put in harm's way whether you're in the military or not. Your job is to make sure they come home alive. That's it. That's all you can do. So that's to be my advice, is to serve honorably, do your job, do your duty, and then get the hell out the first chance you get. But to try and undermine it from within, you can't do that. That's dishonorable. You took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You didn't take an oath to serve a president or political ideology or whatever. You don't get a vote to which war you get to go to. You don't get to say, I only go to the wars that I agree with. You go where you're ordered to go. And that's a decision that's a choice you should have thought about before you took the oath. That's my response. I know people don't want to hear it, but it's the most honest response I can give.
Jamin Jew? I don't know how to pronounce that. Niro-san.
South Korea.
That's an American military base in South Korea. Scott, you probably aren't aware of that, so I just thought I'd let you know. If North Korea nukes Seoul and it succeeds, will the U.S. likely retaliate by nuking back? If not, why not?
I think if North Korea were to use a nuclear weapon against Seoul, South Korea, that the United States would take North Korea off the map. And they would use nuclear weapons as a result. We've made it clear, we being the United States of America, that if North Korea goes nuclear, there will be no North Korea left. That the leadership will be gone. North Korea will be gone. And so, yeah, I think North Korea knows that too. North Korea has nuclear weapons for deterrence, but they have to maintain sort of an active deterrence because the United States and South Korea and Japan have spoken about the attractiveness of a preemptive attack against the North Korean leadership. So North Korea, in order to prevent a preemptive attack, has to be leaning forward very aggressively with a nuclear response. But I don't see North Korea nuking Seoul out of the blue. I would imagine that they would nuke Seoul only after an attempt had been made against North Korea in response to something that the United States, South Korea, or Japan had done. But if North Korea crosses that nuclear threshold, I think that's the end of North Korea.
Tom in Cooperstown is on hold. Let's get him in here. Good evening, Tom. How are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
I got a lot of personal problems.
Oh, sorry to hear that. My question is with regards to troop levels. The Washington Post had an article a few days ago that the military is 41,000 troops short, particularly in the Army. The only branches that hit their current recruiting levels are the Marines and the Space Force. So that's a huge concern because there has been some talk with regards to the draft. Also, Ukrainian-Canadian professor Ivan Kachanowski from Ottawa, he posted on Twitter something from the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine with regards to, I'll read the quote, message for U.S. citizens, elimination of the, quote, residence abroad, end quote, exemption to dual citizen departure. So dual American-Ukrainian citizens will not be able to leave the country if they're between 18 and 60 years of age. I was just wondering if you've heard of that, and they're very concerned about that. Also, with regards to the BRICS commentary earlier on, who's going to be buying our debt? We're $35 trillion in debt, so I'm very concerned about those very important matters. Lastly, with regards to the peace rally on September 28th, is Gerald Celente is going to be in Kingston. Is that correct?
He's in Kingston. He's running. He's the conductor.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, great. That'd be great to put it at Woodstock, which is like 8 miles away, from Kingston.
We may have to, because the Kingston rally is originally configured as only capable of handling a couple thousand. We're upgrading, and so we're going to need to expand but this is early in the planning stages. I can say that hopefully Jeff will concur with me that we're going to take all the energy that we were going to put into our Russia tour, and we're going to make waging peace a reality, but we may have to limit it to the continental United States for the time being.
Okay, I wish you well, and hopefully it just grows all over the country, because I've been to Kingston many times, and it just won't fit more than a few thousand people in downtown Kingston. Plus, it's key with regard to the New York State Thruway. So, but hope to see you guys there.
Can we put up a few people at your house, Tom, if necessary, if the hotels are booked?
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. Near Cooperstown's about 90 miles away. So,
we might have to do a parallel. We might have to do a parallel, event at Cooperstown to take as many as we can, hold it in the Baseball Hall of Fame's baseball field, and then Woodstock, and then we'll go down to Bethel and occupy the original Woodstock grounds, and we'll shut down the Thruway, man, just like they did in Woodstock in the original time. But we're going to do something.
All right, Tom.
Okay.
Thanks.
I hope it works. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, Tom. Semper Fi. Sorry, I cut him off. You hear him say he's got a lot of concerns about everything except me and my personal problems. Do you remember all the things that Tom said?
No.
I don't remember a thing he said either.
I know he said, let me see, a couple of them. Talking about recruitment and the Space Force and whether or not we were worried about the draft and stuff like that. I think people need to understand that the United States, went through if you were alive in the 70s and cognizant of what happened as we transitioned from a draft-based military into an all-professional force and the growing pains that happened. I was a kid, but I witnessed it because my father was career Air Force, and we saw the transit. I enlisted in 1979, 7 years after the Vietnam War ended, when we still had some McNamara 1,000 project people, 100,000 project people in the military. The racism, the drugs, the lack of discipline, the refusal to adhere to authority, that was all alive and well and living in the military in the 1970s. It was a very, very ugly military. But we persevered, we professionalized, we raised our standards, and because Ronald Reagan was the president, we attracted a lot of young, fit, patriotic people who turned the military around. And, that's the reality of it. And then we broke the military after 9/11. We did the same stupid stuff. We lowered standards. We lost focus on mission. We got involved in wars that were unsustainable, unsupportable. We then drew heavily on the reserves and the National Guards, and mainstream these inadequate. See that use of that word, Jeff? Inadequate. These inadequate institutions. The Guard sucks and the reserves suck. I'm sorry, guys. Prove me wrong. Prove me that you can stand toe-to-toe with the regular force, and you can't, and you know it. You know you can't. You know what you did in Afghanistan. You know what you did in Iraq, and you know what you couldn't do. The only branch that actually had reserve forces that could deploy in Desert Storm was the United States Marine Corps, and our reserves performed very well. But that's because we actually are professionals, and we train hard, and we focus on the right things. But the weekend warriors that are the National Guard and the Army Reserve, they're not good. They're not well trained. They're not motivated. They're not fit. They're not fit for anything. But we've learned to rely on them. We now have regularly deployed them for 180-day deployments. Many guys who joined after 9/11 damn near had a career because you could go active duty all the time. But they're not well trained. They're insufficient. If we try to take the Guard and the reserves and send them to Europe to fight the Russians, they'll be slaughtered. They don't know how to fight. But you're not going to make up for that by a draft. We can't do a draft army. We're not organized to do it. It's a completely different thing. People need to know that World War II, Scott, we fought World War II with a draft army. You guys doing that, we started drafting people in 1940. Okay? So we were like doing it already. Selective service, bringing them in, training them, and exercising the system so that it all didn't start on day one. If we tried to transition from this broke system that we have right now, where we have a regular force that is so small and difficult to maintain, backed up by the Guard and the Reserve establishment, which looks good on paper, but they can't do anything, and then replace that with a draft army, you can't do it. You can't do it overnight, and you can't do it in a time of war. So anybody who thinks that the solution is, if we go to war with Russia, bring up the draft, wrong. We're not equipped to do it. Where are we going to train these people? How are we going to equip these people? What organizations are they going to go in? We just haven't thought this thing through properly. We're stuck with the system we have. I would strongly recommend that we professionalize our National Guard and our reserves. All the fat boys, give them meal tickets and send them home. Start raising, America is too fat. Start raising the physical fitness standards. And I'm sorry, women. It's one physical standard for combat arms units. If you can't hack it, you don't make it. But the Army keeps adjusting, the Marine Corps keeps adjusting so that we're politically correct and we can bring women into combat units, knowing that by doing so, we decrease our lethality and we increase the casualty rate, and we lower the combat effectiveness of the unit. The last thing we need to be doing today is lowering the combat effectiveness of the unit. Our unit should be the most lethal military forces on the face of the earth. We don't have the most lethal military force. We have the most politically correct military force today, and it's not good enough. But the draft is not a solution. Politically, it's unsustainable. You want to watch kids go on the street and demonstrate? Put a draft in. All those fat bodies will be out there screaming bloody murder. And I don't mean to be rude. I'm sorry, but the military is no place for fat people. It's not. The military, there's only one job in the military, and that's to close with and destroy the enemy through firepower maneuver, or be part of a system that promotes that. Your job when you enjoy. I remember having this conversation with my daughter. She was like, "What do I do after college?" I was like, "Join the Air Force." She's like, "Well," I said, "But you do know. What if they ask me to go to war? Kill." But I don't want to kill. Don't join the Air Force. Don't join the military. If you don't believe in killing people, don't join the military, because that's all the military exists to do. Ideally, we have politicians over the military, civilian control of leadership, who say, "Thank you, military, for being the most professionally trained killing force in the world. I hope we never use you. And I'm going to do my best to ensure that you're never used." That's great. The ideal military career is 20 years in training to be the most lethal force in the world and never having a chance to use that skill set. So that when you retire, you're healthy. You don't have any bullet holes in you. You got a whole bunch of medals that say, "I was here training, I was here training, I was here training." You got no medals that said, "I got shot, I shot people." But you have to be prepared to shoot people. And that's the reality of it. And you have to have the mindset to shoot people. When I was in the Marine Corps, we didn't allow young Marines to get married. Why? Why the hell would you want a married Marine? You join the Marine Corps, you're training, you're on a ship, training, you're never home. You get married, you deploy, suddenly we got to find a place to put the wife and the kids and take care of them. That's expensive. That takes money away from training to kill. Today, all this money we spend goes to everything but. My artillery battalion fired more artillery rounds, live artillery rounds, in a year, one battalion, than the entire Marine Corps fires today. How could that be, you say? Because all we did is train. We literally lived in the deserts of 29 Palms. We trained, we came home, took a shower, went back, train, came home, took a shower, train. That's it. We were highly trained. And we proved ourselves. We proved ourselves capable of doing any task. But today, you don't train. We spend a lot. I've talked to junior officers. The things that, I mean, it's crazy. Because as an officer, my whole job was to train. I got irritated when they said I have to run a urinalysis program. I'm like, what? You want me to run a urinalysis program? Make guys pee in a cup to prove they aren't taking drugs? That takes away from training. I want to train. And they're like, no, Ritter, you've got to do some admin duties too. Today, these guys, they have to give classes on sexual harassment. And again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You don't sexually harass Marines. End of story. Transgendered adjustment, that's a whole nother issue. We can go on and on and on. All the classes that have to be given, and they're mandatory classes, mandatory, which means the platoon leader or the company commander or the battery commander, they have to give them. So instead of sitting there, bringing in the intelligence officer going, hey, how do we acquire targets, get steel on target better? What do I do to increase my mobility? How do I communicate better under electronic warfare cable? The things you're going to need when you go to war. They're like, keep that intelligence officer away. I need to find out from the admin officer, how many training hours do I have to put in for, sexual harassment? Okay, well, we have to schedule that. How many Marines didn't get their annual DEI awareness training? Well, we got to bring them in and get retrained. And nobody's training to kill anymore. Nobody's training to kill. And then we take shortcuts now. So Maverick's so pissed off right now. He's like, train to kill, train to kill. But the point is, I would not last a week in the Army. I like my weed. Don't join the Army. But the thing is, our military today is not focused on the right things, literally not focused on the right things. And we don't have it's a military that's literally, we are organized to fail. And there's no recovering from this unless there's an absolute, we need, if you study history, General Abrams is the guy that took the Army from the volunteer, from the draft Army to the all volunteer force. Read the history of how that happened and how traumatic it was. We need trauma, peacetime trauma, but we need to rip this whole system apart and start all over from scratch. But society won't let that happen, because to become a warrior society, like I'm just telling you, this is a loquacious version, Jeff, so you got to let me run with this one. To show you how this, when I first arrived at 29 Palms, California in 1985, May 1985, rolled in there, checked into the bachelor officers' quarters. And I'm going Friday night. I'm going to go, and it's Mongolian barbecue. Everybody's saying, go have the Mongolian barbecue. It's great. And I come in, and there's strippers in the officers' club in 29 Palms. And I'm like, what the hell is this? It's a residual, I guess. These are guys who deployed to the Philippines, deployed to, Korea and Thailand, and that whole Vietnam era thing. They had strippers at the officers' club on Friday nights, 29 Palms, California, because this was the wild, wild west. This was back before 29 Palms is what is it today. It truly was an expeditionary place, and you had a bunch of testosterone-laden idiots sitting there, strippers, About a year later, General Monahan rolled in, and his wife took a look at the sign and said, there ain't going to be no strippers. And that was the end of strippers, because wives suddenly had a voice. Why do wives have a voice on a Marine base? Because we were becoming civilized. When I used to run early, we do cadence. Everybody knows what cadence is. We had the dirtiest cadence in the world. The songs we sang would curl your hair. And we loved to sing those songs until we started running through base housing. All those wives that aren't supposed to exist are now existing and saying dirty words. And the wives are like, why are they swearing in the morning? My kids are hearing these dirty words. Don't be on a Marine base. They took away our language. They took away the chants. They took away. And people go, well, that's a good thing, but it's not. Men who are trained to kill are hard men, very hard men. They live hard lives. They have a hard sense of humor. Killing somebody is it's not a task taken lightly. And if you don't create hard men, hard men, then you don't succeed. in the military. That's the bottom line. Any nation could put together an army of mediocre fighters. That's okay. In most cases, personally, that would be preferable because then they can readjust back into society. But professionally, I want the hardest man in the world. I want flint rock hard, murderous soul, dark soul, everything. Because when the time comes, there can be no hesitation, and that person needs to rock and roll. We don't produce warriors like that anymore. And as a result, we end up with the military that we have today, incapable of doing just about any mission.
All right. So to review, no strippers, no cuss words, and no fatties in the military. And you certainly agree with the no fatties edict, maybe not the no swearing part. You know where else there should be no fatties, Scott? On airplanes when I'm sitting in the next
You're sitting in the middle of it. Yeah.
Hey, you know, a lot of people contact us not just to ask a question, but to praise you. They leave voicemail messages, they send emails, so forth and so on. And I don't usually share them, but I figure why not? Let's share one then. Here's a voicemail message from a gentleman named Bob Driscoll.
Scott Ritter, this is Bob Driscoll, retired military. Keep up the great work, man. I follow you all the time. And tell it like it is. They'll get over it. Thank you very much for everything.
Well, thank you, Bob.
Very good fan, Bob Driscoll.
I appreciate it. I think I've seen,
bro.
Semper Fi.
You talk. Semper Fi. All right.
I'm talking over him. Yeah. Sorry, Bob. I think I've seen him either in Telegram or I recognize the name from either Telegram or Twitter. Yeah. Or X.
All right. And pretend I'm saying this for the first time. This is an audio clip designed to persuade you to vote for Trump because he makes so much sense.
Well, I think if they win, I should get all the credit. And if they lose, I should not be blamed at all. Okay.
All right. There you go. Thank you.
We agree. Oh, about Civil War. How does Civil War happen? Hopefully it doesn't. Let me explain why. You know, we had a revolution back in the day because we had a bunch of guys who were in militias and they had muskets. And the British had a bunch of guys who were organized in military units who had muskets. And so at the end of the day, there's a bunch of guys with muskets facing off against a bunch of guys with muskets. And, you know, we know how that ended up. The guys that hid behind trees and wore funky looking clothing beat the guys who wore red and marched in straight lines. But that's it. Civil War. Basically, start out with a bunch of guys with muskets and pistols and some cannons and some sabers going off against some guys with muskets, pistols, cannons, and sabers. And you had a civil war. Our military today, and this is another reason why you really don't want to, I got to watch my language, mess with the current system, because as broke as our system is, and it's broke, we can't fight wars the way we're supposed to fight wars. We still have a military mindset that is apolitical, meaning that when you join the military, especially as a commissioned officer, but even as a non-commissioned officer, you're taught from the very beginning, you know, that oath is very serious and that the military is subordinated to civilian leadership. And that at the end of the day, the civilians are in charge and that you obey the civilians. And at no time does the military think that they're better qualified to step in and take command. And that's the brilliance of America, because I still believe we have an apolitical military. If you have a draft, you suddenly create sort of a popular military where suddenly you have, you know, a bunch of people in there that don't want to be there, who have political opinions and they're not part of the establishment. And then you could see people suddenly deciding to move their own direction. No civilian mob is going to beat the United States military. The United States military has tanks, it has airplanes, it has intelligence collection capabilities, it has the whole thing. Wars changed. So you can't speak of society breaking up. As long as the military remains intact, the Union will be secure. Texas can try to break away, but it won't, unless, you know, the 1st Cavalry Division, the 1st Armored Division decide to become the Texas Militia, which they're not going to. So I'm not worried about a civil war today. I'm worried about civil violence. I'm very worried about civil violence. I'm worried about the cities erupting and becoming, lawless centers. I'm worried about a breakdown of just civil society in general. We're becoming a nation where it's not safe to be in America anymore. I mean, to walk the streets, you get mugged, the subways in New York. I mean, I was just in New York City. I have to tell you, to see, I forget what they call themselves, Task Force Empire State or something like that. The National Guard. Boys. So all the fat boys are out there in their camouflage uniforms in my Amtrak station. Get the hell out of the Amtrak station. You don't belong there. You didn't join the military to intimidate the American people. Get the hell out of Amtrak. Get off the subway. Get out of my life. Stay on base. Train to go fight the bad guys. But don't put on your uniform. And this is where Governor Hochul's just dead wrong. Keep the National Guard out of Amtrak. Keep them out of the subway. They don't belong there. The military has no role whatsoever in policing civil society. None. You don't want it. But there they are out there doing that kind of stuff. But, the military, I just don't see a civil war happening, because I don't see the military breaking up, because we don't have regional militaries. We have regional National Guards, but I already told you they're fat and they can't fight. The National Guard thinks they're going to take on the regular military. Dream on, buddy. The regular military gets up at 5 a.m. They run, they do exercise, they train, they know how to shoot, they know how to move, they know how to communicate. You fat boys know how to eat donuts, fill in your weekend paperwork, and that's it. Because you skip PT, because you're allowed to skip PT. So I'm sure there's somebody's going to come in. I'm in the National Guard, Scott, and I could kick your ass. Yes, you could, because you happen to be the exception to the rule. But for the most part, you know what I'm talking about.
All right. This is from our self-appointed contrarian, and he let me know in a parenthetical comment that he's cooperating with our attempt to tone things down. And so he said he's not going to rile you up. This is Tauntaun, same person. For the last few months, Ukraine has been focused on degrading Russian anti-aircraft capability. Why do you think they are doing it? And is it a wise use of resources?
Well, they're doing it because they're being directed to do it by their NATO masters. Their NATO masters are working under the assumption that eventually F-16s will be deployed to Ukraine. And for the F-16 to have any meaningful role on the battlefield, it has to be employed in a manner that is effective against Russian troops who are currently protected by an air defense umbrella that is composed of Russian air defense systems. So the thinking is, if you degrade Russian air defense before the F-16s come in, the F-16s will be able to roll in and begin combat operations and have effectiveness. So that's what they're doing. The problem is the F-16s don't have any place to operate from. The degradation that's taking place is not on the scope and scale sufficient to knock out the Russian air defenses. There's enough redundancy in the Russian system to make up for the losses. And, that's that. But that's the thinking. The thinking is degrade the Russian air defense before the F-16 comes in so that the F-16 can roll straight into some sort of combat effective role on the battlefield.
A voicemail message from Phil.
Okay, Scott, according to Pepe Escobar, Russia is preparing for a symmetrical response, not an asymmetrical response. A symmetrical response would mean that if Moscow is hit by a NATO missile, armed by NATO soldiers, targeted by NATO soldiers, then the targets for Russian missiles will be Brussels and Washington. Do you agree?
If Moscow's hit, of course, that's the capital. What if Kaluga's hit outside of Moscow? What if Tula's hit outside of Moscow? What if any place around Moscow that's not named Moscow is hit? Does Russia carry out the strikes? And Putin has, I mean, Pepe, I respect Pepe, but Pepe's not Putin. Just the sad fact. Putin has said that if the West wants to take weapons given to the Ukrainians to strike targets in Russia, that the asymmetrical response, and that's a word that he used, will be that Russia gives weapons to third parties who can strike the United States and Europe. That's the Russian response. The last time I checked, Pepe Escobar didn't sit in on the Central Planning Committee of the General Staff or wasn't in the inner circle of Vladimir Putin. I know he was in Russia recently and talked to people, and I'm sure he believes strongly in what he believes in. And the example that you said is if Moscow is hit, yeah, that's a whole different, game. But if other places are hit, Russia's not going to play that game, because that's sort of what the West wants. That's what Ukraine wants. Ukraine wants the escalation ladder to be rapidly climbed up so that there's a general war. That saves Ukraine. The only way Ukraine's coming out of this thing is if there's a general war, and from that general war, Russia backs down. Otherwise, Ukraine's history. Goodbye. And Russia's winning this conflict. So why would Russia play that game? Russia knows what Ukraine's trying to accomplish. They know the risks that are associated with this kind of rapid escalation. I don't see the Russians doing it. I go back to the primary response of Russia will be asymmetrical in nature. And why would I say that? I don't know. The Russian president says so. So I'm going with Putin. Sorry, Pepe.
Tim in St. Petersburg, the one in Russia, that is. Please tell me why people who talk about peace with Russia and a more reasonable foreign policy in the West are usually older. I'm talking about most of the leading podcasts. What should be done to get Zoomers involved?
Well, Tim, first of all, I want to hope that you're calling this one of the leading podcasts. But then I object to being called older. We have to have a talk. I'll tell you why. Because most older people remember the Cold War, and they remember the fear of nuclear conflict, and they remember I think the euphoria of the transition from the evil empire into a country that we could think about being friends with. Now we fumbled that. I think we've talked about the decade of the 90s. We've talked about the malfeasance of Michael McFaul and other people who were involved in the exploitation of Russia politically, economically, spiritually. But the older you are, the more you remember the joy you felt at the end of the Cold War. It's over. Because before that, there was tension. It was like, we're going to die. We're all going to die. There's going to be a nuclear war, and we're over. And suddenly the Cold War is over, and you're going, whoa, wait a minute. We didn't die. We made it. And so we understand the potential of peace with Russia. We understand that that's a reality. So that's why you see more older people, because they're talking about a topic they're familiar. Zoomers. What is the Zoomer, by the way, Jeff? What is
the person who was born in the late late 1990s or early 2000s?
Okay, if you were born in the 1990s, you have no idea of what the 1990s was in Russia, none whatsoever, and you don't understand the damage that America's policies did to the Russian people. That means that you came into being around 2008, 2010. So maybe the first idea that you have about Russia is the reset. You might, you might remember George W. Bush saying, "I looked in his eyes and I could see his soul." And you're like, "Oh, Putin's good." And then Obama, "We're going to do a reset." And then McFaul gives Hillary Clinton a red button that's spelled wrong. It means overload. And Lavrov laughs. And suddenly things are going bad. Georgia got invaded. Oh, damn, these Russians are evil. Little green men in Crimea. Damn those Russians. Maidan, the Russians are everywhere. Holy, Putin talking nuclear weapons. Them Russians are bad. And that's the mindset in America today. Simplistic, ignorant as the day is long. Stupid was a word we used here earlier. I'm not running for office, so I will literally say it. If you think Russia is a threat to America, you're stupid. You're ignorant. And you're the problem, not the solution. Zoomers have to be willing to be re-educated, which is why we still have boomers. Hello, America. I'm a boomer. Jeff's a boomer. We're of that generation. We're go away, boomer.
But the Zoomers are taking quite an interest in the plight of Palestinians, although I don't know that translates into a broader anti-war commitment. But that's something, isn't it?
Well, now I'm going to get in trouble again. Why do I have to be honest? Let me ask you this. How many Zoomers that are out there demonstrating for the Palestinians, and I think the Palestinian people would appreciate this, could pass the test on Palestine? Do they really know what they're demonstrating? They're demonstrating against photographs of dead babies. They're demonstrating against photographs that show atrocities. And that's not a bad thing to demonstrate. But the vast majority of these Zoomers don't know a damn thing about Palestine. They don't know anything about the history of the Middle East. And therefore, they're superficial. I'm glad they're there. And I hope that in the process of the outrage they feel about the bombs and everything, that they take the time to talk to real Palestinians about the issues and learn from them. But I just think a lot of people are out there because they're angry in general. And this is a topic that they've jumped on. But I'm very worried that this angst isn't going to survive the summer, because unless you're truly knowledgeable, unless you can tap into a reservoir of fact-based certainty, you'll drift. You'll drift because it becomes too hard to stay focused on something that you don't know enough about. And after a while, one dead baby looks like another dead baby, looks like another dead baby. I talked about, the sadness in my heart for the dead children. But I said, at least now it's going to come to an end. The Russians are here. How do you feel about the Russians coming? And she's like, she started crying. She's like, it's great, but why did it take them so long? That was her point. We're Russian. Everybody today is like, the Donbass is Russia. Donbass will always be Russia. If we're always been Russian and we are Russian, why did it take you so long? And that's the Donbass dilemma. Why did it take Russia so long? And that's really a question that only the Russians can answer. I made no effort to answer that. I simply pointed out that, that is and all of the euphoria that exists in Crimea. In Crimea, it didn't take the Russians long at all. Literally, the moment Maidan took place and the right sector made a move on Crimea, Russia took Crimea. But in the Donbass, the Russians stood aside and they got engaged on the periphery. They sent advisors. They, provided secretive support. But when the Nazis went into Mariupol, and I think everybody's seen the video of the BMP armored fighting vehicles ramming through the barricades, what you're not seeing is the people on the barricades getting run over and crushed to death by the BMPs. And then the Azov, the right sector, the Banderas came in and formed the Azov Battalion. The Azov Battalion is an occupation force of Nazis, Banderas, who occupied the Russian city of Mariupol and proceeded to pillage it, rape it, destroy it, torture it for 8 long years until Russia recaptured it. And for the Russian population of Mariupol, for the Russian population of the Donbass, the question is, why did it take you so long? And that's a fair question. I mean, I'm sure there's a good answer. Putin, has talked about wanting to avoid war, working with the Minsk process, trying to, negotiate an outcome that would be equitable to all parties. Today, he admits he made a mistake, that while he believed in peace, nobody else did, and he was lied to and somewhat naive in believing that people believed in that. Maybe he would have done something different in 2014. These are all, if. The bottom line is nothing was done until 2022 when the Russians went in. And the people of Donbass are forever grateful for the sacrifice that Russia's making on their behalf, because they are Russian. But why did it take so long? And that's the eternal question. Yeah, Mariupol was, Mariupol was leveled. It was, that was tough fighting. It was a city under siege and such. Donetsk was always under Russian control and or those separatist control, and so it suffered some artillery stuff, but there hasn't been the heavy fighting. And so when you go into Donetsk, it's an intact city with occasional evidence of trouble. But when you move into Lugansk, the province of Lugansk, they recaptured all of Lugansk after 2022, but a good chunk of Lugansk was under Ukrainian occupation. And so from 2022 until 2020, I guess the end of 2022, there was heavy fighting. And as you drive through Lugansk and you make through Donetsk and you make your way up to Lugansk, you're driving through what used to be the front line. And it is literally, I guess the equivalent is, and I don't live in tornado country, but people who do, I've talked to, and how a tornado can touch down, go and then sort of jump up, skip over a neighborhood, then touch down again, wipe out these houses, jump up, skip over. And that's what it was. You're driving through going, oh, look, an intact village, people, life. Literally down the road, burned out village, empty, vacant, ghost town. Down the road, half the village burned out, half the village still good. And it's just this randomness of destruction that marked the journey to Lugansk. And I was struck by that. I was struck by the randomness of war. I guess it happens when the enemy puts up a fight and then gets beat. Maybe they pull back a couple villages, and so two built villages survive, but then they dig in on the next one. They have to take that village. But it just, again, it made no sense. There was no rhyme or reason to just the way the destruction of conflict was spread loaded across the terrain. And it was somewhat depressing, to be honest, because you drive into Lugansk, and like Donetsk, Lugansk was a city that was largely unaffected. And unlike Donetsk, today Donetsk is a frontline city, so there's literally everybody who lives there wakes up and is rolling the dice. You get up and you just roll the dice, and it's like, are we going to randomly get hit by a Ukrainian shell today? No, we live. Boom. Oh, we lost an arm. Oh, you just don't know. It's a crapshoot every day. Lugansk is out of the woods for the most part, and so the city is doing well, but they have their Alley of the Angels, and when they first put the alley up, I think the number of kids was 33, and the statue they put up has 33 birds flying in the sky, and but today the number, I think, dead children, and the number's rising. But Lugansk is the forgotten city. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we went to Lugansk, is to bring attention to that, because everybody goes to the Donetsk Alley of the Angels. It's I
remember we showed those pictures.
Yeah, it's a place that it's well known. It gets attention. But the Lugansk one, and look, they just had a day to talk about the children of, this is a big issue. In the West, we tend to bypass it, but there's a Ukrainian general not Ukraine, I'm sorry, the military advisor to Denis Pushilin has taken this under his wing, and he's trying to bring attention to the children who suffer, the dead, the wounded, the orphans. They're the forgotten byproduct of conflict, and the Russians are very good at keeping the kids front and center. The Russians aren't forgetting, but sometimes even in Russia, you need to be reminded that Donetsk isn't the only place where children are dying, and Lugansk. So that's why we sought to bring attention to the Lugansk monument. Ukraine's been promised F-16s from day one, and none have arrived. After last night, it's unlikely none will ever arrive. The Russians attacked 2 airfields that were being set aside for F-16 deployment. Just today, the news is coming out. There's just not that many Ukrainian pilots trained in F-16s, and there's hardly anybody trained to maintain them. Planes don't fly themselves. And pilots are pilots. They're pretty good. They're cool. They get to play Top Gun, but the hero of the day is the squadron maintenance officer. He's the one that keeps the airplanes up and running together with the maintenance crews. And the Ukrainians don't have them. And none are going to be deployed in Ukraine for them. So if you don't have the sustainability, the maintenance, et cetera, you don't have an F-16. And the bottom line is, I don't believe there's going to be any F-16s going to Ukraine at all, ever. I think the war will end before a single F-16 gets off the ground, because nobody wants to be, no nation who's giving F-16s to Ukraine wants to be the first one to lose an F-16. Because once you lose one, you lose them all. And then it's just a huge embarrassment, et cetera. So I think they're going to just slow roll this thing. Their hope is that Russia will be brought to a negotiated into this conflict in a manner which allows Ukraine to retain its military and its government. And once that ceasefire kicks in, then the F-16s will flood in so that they become a reality. Russia's not playing that game. When this war ends, demilitarization means all of Russia said you won't be part of NATO, which means anything that stinks of NATO disappears, and all those F-16s that go in will disappear. Now, it's better maybe not to put them in. And I think that's what's happening here. So when your legal precedent is legal precedent, and I think we should take a look at the funders of Nazi Germany to find out, what should be done. And I think we know what the answer is. Not a damn thing. So it might make us feel good to talk about holding the financiers accountable. They're never held accountable, ever. And they won't be, because they control everything. And now I'm going to delve into a slightly controversial thing, but keep the money out of politics, and American politics will be cleaned up. That's a 100% guarantee. Remove the money, clean up the politics. But we're not going to remove the money, so politics will always be dirty. Therefore, everything will be dirty. That's it.
All right.
The next war, if it requires hundreds of thousands of additional troops, it's too late. By the time, it gets to that, we'll have lost the war already. This nation isn't a nation that's ready for mobilization on that scale. Who are we going to draft? They're all fat. They are all fat. The entire generation has just gone fat. And that's not me saying it. It's
Scott.
Everybody who
look at this figure.
Yes, but Jeff, you're of the generation that isn't fat.
Oh, all right.
I'm talking about the 18 to 26-year-olds. They're fat, and if they're not fat, then they hang out in the gym all day, and they're worried about the cuts and all this kind of stuff, and they can't fight either. If you're a gym boy who's always trying to look pretty, you're no good to anybody. And if you're a fat boy, you're no good to anybody. We need well-rounded, normal people who, spend their day exercising, running, having fun, being, fit, being mentally healthy, people who aren't all day, doing this, that, and the other thing, playing computer games. And we don't have them today. They're gone. That's why the military has a heck of a time recruiting people, because there just isn't. And then, when people do volunteer, they're just not physically. We have to dumb down all of our standards, all of our fitness standards. I want Dorsal Boyer removed from the chat. I'm just going to say that one time, please. Okay. I don't want his name up here. No, I'm being dead serious. I don't know how to be any more serious than this. Ryan, never flash his name up on the screen again. Don't give him any time, and get him the hell out of the chat room.
I can't. Yes, I can't. But I get.
Well, if you get it, don't put him up there. I mean, I don't know how to make it that clear. Yeah, I mentioned you. You're dead, Dorsal. All right, I'm supposed to be nice. I'm not allowed to lose my temper.
This is the second episode since we turned over a new leaf. Now, you didn't yell. You didn't use the F word, so I don't think you've violated the new commitment yet. That's okay.
Yeah. Anyways, I'll tell you.
By the way, are we still sticking to that? No more F word and.
Oh no, I'm the epitome of calm, cool, collected. I don't lose my temper, except at people like
Dorsal.
that.
Right.
Well, it's not him. It's anybody who thinks they can come into this podcast on that chat and type anything they want to type. You can't. It's just not going to happen. So, das vidanya. One is getting the American people to realize just how close they are to all dying. And they just don't care. They really don't. I mean, my name isn't Dennis Kucinich. If it was, I'd say, of course, the American people are very smart and they're engaged. And the American people are dumber than dirt. I'm not running for office, so I can be honest. You guys are stupid. Because if you were smart, you'd actually care about things that pertain to life and death. Nuclear war is sort of it. And we're headed in that direction. And it should scare the hell out of everybody. But we're just sleepwalking. And then the other problem is the fact, one of the reasons why they buy into this, talk of the need for nuclear weapons, et cetera, is the Russian threat. And I continue to be frustrated that our mission, which was to go to Russia, get information, gather it, package it, bring it back to better inform the American public so that they might not view the Russians as a threat worthy of nuclear conflict and therefore hold their elected representatives accountable when they head us down the path towards nuclear war. But the rug's been pulled out. So it's tough. I mean, we had expectations for the summer. They're going to have to be recalibrated. Doesn't mean we give up. It just means that we focus on what we can do. And I'll announce it now, like I'll announce it forever. September 28th, baby. That's get out and show the politicians that you don't like nuclear war day. And if you're near Kingston, New York, come to Kingston. We're having a party. We'd like 1 million people. But if we can't get 1 million people in Kingston, we'd like to get a couple million just out. I don't know what you're doing on Saturday, but why don't you all just agree to have one, those flash parties? Isn't that what they call them? Flash parties?
Flash mobs, I think.
Flash mob. Yes. Let's just flash mob America. Let's just, at a period of time, everybody just show up in downtown, wherever the hell you are, and stop together and shout out, we are tired and we're not going to take it anymore. No nukes, no nukes. And if everybody does it, maybe a politician will listen. We're in an election year where the Republicans and Democrats are split 50-50. It's going to be a close election no matter what. And if a constituency shows up that says we're bipartisan, meaning we could go either way, and the determinant is your stance on nuclear war and how do you feel on arms control. And now you're Joe Biden saying, well, but somebody speaks for him and he says, I'm against nuclear. I mean, America's got to be strong. America's going to be strong. But Joe, you're not going to be president next year if you keep saying that. I believe in arms control. And then you press him. And then there's Donald Trump. I'll pick up the phone and I'll tell him I'm going to nuke you. Well, Donald, if you do that, you lose the election. You might want to change your rhetoric and see which one can change their rhetoric and be more believable about it.